Hello, everyone, and welcome to week three. This week is about lesson planning, and we're going to start that conversation with creating outcomes, learning objectives, student learning outcomes. There's some interchangeable phrases that you'll hear depending on your teaching context. But what this is just crafting a phrase that you will assess for, and that your students will say, okay, at the end of class, I will be able to do this. This is a very helpful tool, being able to craft outcomes, because you can write it on the board and as agenda items, so students know what they're going to be doing. That practice of being very explicit around your teaching practices and writing an agenda on the board is something that backs all of the adult learning characteristics we talked about in week one, and also when your students are seeing and experiencing completing those things in your class, like, oh, I can actually do this, and that's what he said I should, or she said I would be able to do at the end of class. Then there's a bit of a motivational and persistence kick there. So you're gonna learn about action verbs. You're gonna look at this format and structure of an outcome, and this is all grounded in backward design, which is a concept for instructional design, where we start at the end, what we want the students to be able to do at the end of the class, or the end of the lesson, or the end of the activity, and we move and plan backward to present. So the outcome is something that we would want them to be able to do at the end of the class or the end of the activity. You can scaffold outcomes on top of each other. So say you want a student to write an essay on their personal background. Step one would be let's start at a list your personal background in bulleted items. So that would be the actionable item that they're doing, and then they're listing their items in their history. Then the next one would be organize your background into a outline, and that would be another outcome. The product of that would be an outline for the essay. And then the next one would be writing an essay, 3 paragraphs, your background. So that's kind of how you can scaffold outcomes and how they can relate. I'm going to post an image to the week of scaffolding objects. Each outcome, as we'll talk about in week 4, is associated with some form of assessment, whether that's formative or summative, and we'll get into those definitions in week 4. Because you also want to begin to plan for your assessments before you ever get into the classroom as well. So let's look at what you need to do for the week. There's some readings, some really good readings, a video that you can check out in one of the readings, and you're going to craft an outcome and share it in the discussion. So let's jump into the course really quickly and into week 3. So as you can see, the overview, the weekly learning objectives, I list these every week, and they scaffold up to the course outcomes. So when I was talking about scaffolding, list items, organize an essay, write an essay, this course is structured the same way. There are weekly learning objectives, and then there are course outcomes. And those weekly learning objectives feed up to and prepare you to demonstrate the course outcomes. So the key reading this week is Understanding by Design. There's a textbook. You can buy it. It's called Understanding by Design. It's a great textbook. It's not required for this course. They post a lot of their materials online, so we're going to be using that. This is the material from that textbook for this week. If you do have the textbook, we're in Chapter 1, Backward Design. You could get into Chapter 2 as well. Then we have some additional readings and materials on lesson planning. This is a depth of knowledge, or a Bloom's taxonomy, And this is where the action verbs that I was talking about, like list, organize, when we want our students to do something, what are we having them do? And that starts with recall. It goes and very simple mental cognitive tasks like recall, list, understand. And then it grows to the next level would be compare, uh, describe, and the next level would be analyze. The next level would be create. That's a higher level. That takes a lot of complex cognitive tasks. So look at that. It's a wheel, but try and disseminate which sections of the wheel are more difficult and less difficult. So if we jump in, you'll see level 1, list, label. Level 2, infer, categorize. So it's kind of hard, getting a little bit harder mentally, cognitively. Level 3, strategic thinking, draw conclusions, differentiate, critique. And then level 4, synthesize, connect, design, apply. These are the high level ones. And these are the ones that, really grasp your students will create motivational exercises and class goals that'll really be like, oh wow, I'm going to be able to do this. If you're teaching math, maybe you're teaching in GED, you're teaching an algebra class that day. Maybe they still need to learn y equals mx plus b, but you frame that skill, you scaffold that as maybe a step 1 or step 2 little activity in your class. But the final class is, let's apply this to a credit card or a real life scenario. Same thing with geometry and maybe landscaping if you've got some landscapers in your class. So check this out and have this help you as like kind of your verb on the front end of the outcome that you place in discussion. Jumping back to the readings, move through those, and then the discussion this week is lighter because we don't have a major assignment. Week 3, learner outcomes. I'm going to have you craft an outcome, and then I want you to think through what would happen in the classroom around that activity. So this one's a little bit of a bigger discussion, and when you're replying to your colleagues, maybe if you come up with a different activity, share that idea with them in your reply this week. Let's get creative and help each other think through how we could reach outcomes, because we're going to get into them a little bit deeper the coming weeks as we begin to think about how to plan for class when it comes to assessment, lesson planning, learning experiences or activities in your classroom. So discussion, reflection this week. And some good readings. And I'll be emailing everybody to say, hey, how's everything going? And we'll have a good week. But make sure to stay active in the discussions.